So we're back with Bibliocide, committing it now with the red and the black. And it's come to my attention that we can't underestimate the power of love. It not only actually exists, but is also a means of faking things. They start acting disingenuous for the reason of, suddenly recognizing that you can play a role and somehow lift yourself up out of the mooring of just being yourself, as opposed to being in a novel, which they are. Although probably one of the freshest characters, Madame de Chanel, has never read a novel. She's acting pretty, her dilemma is, between love and coming from the nunnery. I guess she's a pretty lovely lady. But Julian loves to play roles. In a moment he'll approach a situation as he thinks is fit, just being himself, and then suddenly recognize a glint of a type of situation within the real situation, and then abandon all of the authentic reactivity and lose himself kind of in the pride of adopting a role. I just said the same thing. Hypocrisy, insofar as sometimes the characters are really cannonballing the gut of your humiliation apparatus, and yet the realization and recognition of that is in a moment that's detached from the actual situation to a degree that you no longer have the ability to even react to it, except to stew in the fact of its reality, as opposed to recognizing someone is, shitting on you in the moment, and then you can go at them. But when it takes you a while and everything is kind of torn by a purchasable, or at least quantifiable resource, but a resource not for any sort of enlightenment and not for any infrastructure, but purely for sentimental, social pressures and goals, which you may or may not genuinely have, but which are essentially fed to you like syllabi for success. And who doesn't, no matter how radical you are, wish for just a nice quality syllabus for success in the goals of your life's dream. These days we might think of intoxication as a daily occurrence, but at one point it really only happened in the darting across a very dangerous cornice up 40 feet in the air, elevated above the pews on which sits, fainting almost, your lover, recognizing you after a year's imprisonment in some sort of pseudo theological school grounds, after which the recognition of this effect upon your soul, your at this point intoxicated soul, requires those responsible for you to cover up for your mistakes and really save you from yourself, knowing that a sensitive soul is prone to intoxication and is prone to be untethered to the whole money side of the business, the sense that at all times your success is that quality of yourself that is also the making of your fall. But from perhaps the other room or from across the room, you witness this sort of haunting vibration letting you know your phone is buzzing after this somewhat extended period away from the phone. And you realize that while you haven't been consciously thinking of the phone, it's been somewhere nearby as a possibility in your mind for action, for, program of action leading you to the phone to look at it. The vibration happens as a strange kind of oral reminder. And as you look and you think about, should I ignore this? You feel emanating from the phone all of the possibilities inherent within the phone as kind of its own realm within your life, kind of in some sense cut off from your self, perhaps slightly because you've been invested in something else. And consciously you haven't thought about the fact that you're not looking at your phone, while perhaps there's also this fluttering recognition somewhere that you feel slightly more clean, that you feel slightly more yourself almost, but a self that you don't often identify yourself with, but like to when it happens and would like to have happen more. But that sense is always tied to the negative relationship to the phone when you're not actually looking at it, and you've taken that little break and you realize your phone is blowing up. You have a choice, and you recognize that there's this emanation coming out from that choice, which has this funneling effect in which you will get entranced by the possibilities of the kind of realm of your life that takes place online by going onto the phone. And you will at first slip among all of the myriad possibilities into a kind of more narrow and claustrophobic sense as you reach the little tube spout of the funnel, which is just the act of sitting there looking at the phone and the way that your eyes tunnel into it. So you feel all of those options as like very exciting ghosts, which you can possibly make feel real. This to me feels slightly like what happens to a character in the novel when situations of authentic relationships and affection arise until, like a sunrise, they have weaseled their way in subconsciously to the gateway into a type of role that perhaps they find in some abstract way desirable, probably for reasons of ego or pride. And this leads to a shifting of the situation, leads to a recognition of the tropes that would take you further into this type of interaction and lead to sort of the success by copying correctly the model of the interaction. And so basically Julian does this a lot, and it's kind of like putting on a mask halfway through an interaction, putting on a mask only halfway through a performance, in a strange way, being genuine about both the masked and the unmasked, and to be pretty much lost in between those two, which don't really fit together and seem to be causes of both the victories and the failures of your life.